Right. Talk to us about, again, when these things were written. Some people say, well, how do you know it's not legend or myth, or it's not the product of the church instead of the disciples? In other words, talk to the point where they say it didn't really come into existence until about 200-300 years after Jesus was on the scene. What would you say to that?
Well, it's impossible to argue that way because we have the manuscript materials earlier than this. There was a liberal theologian by the name of Rudolf Bultmann who said that the writings of the New Testament are actually the product of second-century Gnosticism, particularly the Gospel of John is such a product. Little difficulty arose, namely finding a fragment of the Gospel of John at the year 100. It's very difficult to be influenced by second-century Gnosticism when the book's already written.
What are the dates for the books?
Yes, the Gospels, the Synoptic Gospels, that is Matthew, Mark, and Luke, plus almost all of the rest of the New Testament, appeared before the fall of Jerusalem in the year 70. It's fascinating to notice how even liberal scholars in our time have been forced to earlier dating like this on the basis of manuscript evidence. Thus, J.A.T. Robinson, honest-to-God Robinson of the 1960s, before his death, produced a work entitled Redating the New Testament, and in this he said every book of the New Testament was written before 70 by a baptized Jew. He even included the Gospel of John. And in his posthumous book, published just last year, he argues that the Gospel of John was the earliest of the Gospels. Now, it certainly wasn't, but this is an indication of how early the dating has to be placed now. And the same position was taken by William Foxwell Albright of Johns Hopkins University, the author of the most important general work on biblical archaeology in our country. He said that every single book of the New Testament was a product of people in direct contact with Jesus and before the fall of Jerusalem in 70.
Give us what scholarship is substantiating concerning the dates. Start with Luke and work your way back on dates.
Well, in all probability, Mark's gospel is the earliest, all right? And it was used by Matthew as one of Matthew's sources, and also used by Luke as one of Luke's sources. We have external evidence that shows us this early dating along the following lines. We know that Paul died in the Neronian persecution 64-65. Now, the book of Acts sets forth the biography of Paul, his missionary activities. But at the end of the book of Acts, Paul has not yet died. So it's clear that the book was written before his death. Had he died, obviously, the author would have mentioned it. Death is important in a biography, it ends it. 64, 65, Acts, Luke is part one of Acts. And is stated to be such. In the book of Acts, the writer says, the former treatise I presented to you, Theophilus. That's Luke. So Luke is written prior to Acts. But Luke used Mark. Now, you're moving back from 64, 65, and Jesus died around the year 30. That places all of this stuff within a generation of the events themselves. 35 years maximum.
Why is that important?
Well, I hate to admit this, but I graduated from high school around 35 years ago, and I remember very clearly my high school graduation. Some of it I'd like to forget. And the fact that we have little difficulty in remembering events that are important to us 35 years ago means simply that the stuff that you get in the New Testament is an accurate memory of what Jesus said and did. And these writers claim that. They insist that they are presenting what we today would call the straight scoop about that man.
So we have accurate information, historical records about a person called Jesus, substantiated by a multitude of documents that far outweighs any kind of support that you have in the classics itself. The time date for these books, the interval of transmission, is much shorter than what you have for the classics. And so what's the conclusion on all of this?
Conclusion is this, that you can know when you read the New Testament that what it says about Jesus is accurate. Now, if it should turn out that what these documents say is that Jesus was the God of the universe come down here to earth to deal with your personal spiritual problems, you'd better come to terms with him. You have no choice. You're facing reality, and you're going to have to deal with it. Nobody can come to you that way and remain in neutrality. You're going to have to make some sort of decision about a person like that.